And I'm starting. If you want to pull up your regular screen, the nursing screen, we can get that started. And that way it's just they're not having to see everything.
Yes.
Well, good evening to all of our family members. Thank you all for joining us this evening to learn more about our School of Nursing. My name is Meredith Call, and I am the director for our off-campus student and family engagement office, the one that is hosting all of our different summer webinar series. I will tell everyone for our family members who are not in and around the Birmingham area, right now we are experiencing some pretty severe thunderstorms in the area, which have impacted some of our internet and power outages up here. So the good news is that myself and then Anna Lee are in two different locations in the state. So hopefully if one of us gets knocked off, the other one is still will be able to continue on with the webinar and everything. So I apologize again for any type of technological issues that you may be having from in results of my internet or power outages here. So in order to get us going and keep us moving, we want to make sure that this is an interactive and engaging session. So if you have questions at any point, please know that we would love for you to put those questions in the Q&A function, and we will share those back and forth so that Anna Lee, our resident expert of all things about the School of Nursing, can be able to help answer that related back to what your students' experience and everything will be like. But with that being said, you are here to learn and hear about the school, UAB School of Nursing, and those requirements. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Annalie Whitman to share all about their resources, opportunities, and programs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Meredith. I'm so glad to be here and representing the School of Nursing this evening. Thank you to our families. We are so excited to have your students joining the School of Nursing this fall. It's an amazing time for them in their lives to be able to have this journey and hopefully becoming nurses very, very soon. But along with that, there's a lot to learn. Nursing can be overwhelming, and there's a lot of information that goes along with it. So if I have not had a chance to meet you, hopefully you've come on a campus tour, hopefully you've seen me there before, but if you've not, I encourage you at some point between now and by the time the fall semester starts in a few weeks, every Friday at noon, I host a in-person tour, and that is where you can come and see our labs and classrooms. And so it's a great way just to kind of solidify that experience that you're going to be having to get to see and meet us in person. And so please make sure that you go onto our campus admissions website and sign up for those tours if you haven't already. But again, I'm guessing that most of you have. So my role in the School of Nursing is I'm over undergraduate and graduate recruitment. And so I work with students, whether they are coming out of high school and starting their journey into nursing, or maybe they are starting off at a community college and then hoping to transfer after they've completed an associate's degree in nursing. And then once you have completed a bachelor's degree, then hopefully one day you're going to come back to us and go on to maybe one day be a nurse practitioner, nurse anesthetist, get your research nursing degree as a PhD leader and as a nurse scientist, or be a nurse executive. So there are so many things that you can do in nursing. The list just goes on, and it's really exciting. There could not be a greater time for those going into healthcare, and we greatly need you. When I get older, I want great nurses at my bedside to take care of me. So please encourage those that you know who are great caretakers that we need you in nursing. So for tonight's session, like Meredith mentioned, we want you to let us know any questions that you have. My goal is to make sure that you have my contact information. I'm also going to explain to you how the process works, right? So what you can expect from us and the resources that you will have available. The link that you see, oh, let me go back right here real quick. There's a link that you see that says chat with me there at the bottom. If after tonight you have any specific questions that maybe we don't cover or you want some more information about, please feel free to use that link and you can schedule some time to talk with me further. And I am happy to meet with you at any time to talk with you about any questions or concerns that you have, okay? So why UAB School of Nursing? Hopefully these are questions you've already answered to make the decision to come to us. So we're not going to spend a great deal of time here, but we are going to highlight just a few things that make us really special because these are things that are going to become part of you being a Blazer. And so they are really important. First and foremost, one thing you should know, since possibly the last time that you met with us, we have a new dean in the School of Nursing. So she is Dr. Marie Rodriguez-Shirey. She is an incredible human being. She's been with the School of Nursing for really the past 8 or 10 years. Forgive me for not knowing the exact timeline there, but she was actually up in our research focus area there and working with global nursing research. So she does a lot of partnerships. So this is an opportunity for her to have a lot of great wealth of knowledge that she can share with all of us in both undergraduate and graduate programs. So we could not be more thrilled to have her just touching upon all areas there in the School of Nursing. So as an incoming student and as the parents, you're going to have a lot of great opportunities to get to know a lot more about her. And if you haven't already seen our social media platforms, there's been a little tidbits about her coming out just to get to know her better day by day. So we're really excited to introduce her to the world. She is originally from Miami, which she loves to share also about her hometown. So you'll get to see a lot more about that as well. So the School of Nursing, I mentioned there's a lot of pathways to get to where you are as a nurse, whether that's starting at UAB and getting your bachelor's at the jump, or if you start off at any other school. So at UAB, we do not offer certificate programs at the undergraduate level. We do not offer an LPN or associate's degree nursing. Okay, so a lot of questions about that we get from parents and family members. We start at the bachelor's level in nursing. We do have a new program that I'm going to touch on at the end of this presentation. That's a joint enrollment pathway with our local community colleges. So we're getting a lot of questions about that. And when we talk to students about being competitive for nursing school, and you think about putting your eggs in all the baskets to be competitive, this is a really great thing to consider. So we will touch on that before we end the presentation tonight. But as you look at this slide that I have put up here, I want to point out just a couple of things because this is how you'll kind of hopefully flow through your degree plan. So this is our Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. After you finish your roughly 2 years of prerequisite courses, the nursing program is 5 semesters. So that 5 semesters is a consecutive 5 semesters, right? So we'll flow straight through the program. After that, you would go to work as a nurse and then decide if you want to go on further for your graduate studies in nursing. And these are all the options for graduate studies. So we have our BSN to DNP for nurse anesthesia. And you'll see it's kind of separated off by itself because it does have a very specific work requirement in critical care for you to be able to apply to go into that pathway. The PhD program that I mentioned a few moments ago, that's also a great option. There's another BSN to DNP pathway for nurse practitioners. So that is offered here, and students can actually apply to go into that program as soon as they're ready after completing their bachelor's degree. And then last but not least, we have our Master's of Science in Nursing. And there's several options that you'll see here as we go through the presentation for both the BSN to DNP and Master's of Science in Nursing for both nurse practitioners. Maybe you want to do something that's non-clinical, so maybe you want to be in leadership or work with computers as a nurse. So there's a lot of things that you can do to specialize. Maybe you want to be an educator. So we can certainly help you with all of those things in the School of Nursing. And then down here at the bottom, if you have a student or maybe you know someone who wants to start off at the community college, Once you finish your associate's degree in nursing, once you finish that associate's degree, it actually allows you to work as a nurse in our area hospitals. And so one great benefit about having an associate's degree in nursing first is that if you go to work at a place like UAB Hospital, they will actually pay for you to finish your bachelor's degree. So again, that's if you get your associate's degree first and then go back to finish your bachelor's degree in nursing. So I know that that's not our goal in discussion tonight, but I wanted to mention that because you may know people in your community who are interested in that pathway. So I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't mention that we are one of the top schools in nursing in the country. So what you see here in our ranking is really based upon all of the graduate programs that we offer and the specializations that we will be able to afford your student, but also the resources that offers, right? So just because we're doing all this great research, the nursing faculty and the specialties that they afford, like the practices that they have, that work comes back into our program and it offers your student a unique experience at UAB. We are currently tied for 13th in the country overall. And just this year, we have a new ranking. It's the first time that they've ever ranked undergraduate bachelor's programs, and we are ranked #1 in the country for that ranking. So your student, again, is going to be part of the #1 Bachelor's of Science nursing program in the entire country. So kudos for a good choice there. So I know a question that you probably all have is how COVID has impacted our students, right? So that's a really important question when you think about that learning process. And so one of the things that you always want to look at for schools, and especially a student class our size, is the NCLEX pass rate. And there's a lot of things that we're doing to help students overcome some of the learning outcomes that they have sustained through that time of COVID. And so as you look at the NCLEX pass rates, both at the national level and Alabama's average and our own averages, then you'll be able to kind of see not only where we were prior to COVID, but how COVID did impact us and how we're rebounding currently. So these are, again, really important things to consider, but also to know that we are not unimpacted by COVID, right? And so we're looking to put into a lot of remediation planning, that some things we had, some things we didn't. And we're trying to be very forward thinking in how we approach our testing concepts or how we're helping students and putting new class concepts in place and ahead of time. So one of those includes a freshman experience class that all freshman students will take if they're declared as a nursing interest, which means pre-nursing. And so your students will all have in their freshman year as a pre-nursing student, 1 day a week, they'll come to the School of Nursing. And this class is all helping them to think like a nursing student, right? So we'll talk about time management skills, keeping up with a planner. Maybe some students are more organized than others. Maybe it's just struggling with a roommate and getting used to living out on your own with a stranger for the first time in their lives. But other things a little more serious about nursing, taking an NCLEX exam, which is a standardized exam that all students are not comfortable with. We will also give them questions that they have no idea how to answer, but we're going to talk about the process for learning how to take those exams. They are going to go 1 day over to UAB Hospital for a shadowing experience with a nurse at the hospital. And that day is all about making sure that nursing is what you really want to do. So if for any reason we get over there to the hospital and they come back and evaluate and kind of determine that nursing is not what they thought it was going to be, or maybe that the sights and the smells and the sounds of working as a nurse is not in their mindset at that point in time, that's okay, right? And so what they're looking for in life experience is maybe in another realm, then we can get them to where they want to be. Maybe they want to be in healthcare, but they want to be on the backside of a patient's care. Maybe they would rather be a physical therapist or work in public health. So they don't want to be on that front side of working with the patient. We can help them get there. So their advisor can set them up with an appointment in another area to talk with them about what would those requirements look like? What kind of jobs can I get? And does that suit what your student is looking for if nursing ends up not being what they're really passionate about? We'll also have days in the lab during that class. So truly that day is about exploring, right? The whole class is about exploring and helping them to get to know other pre-nursing students. So just know that one day a week in their freshman year, they're going to be part of getting to know the nursing program. A big part of the resources in the School of Nursing is that advising process. So as a pre-nursing student, your student is going to be advised through the nursing program or someone who's in VMASC who has accesses to resources that are aligned with the School of Nursing. So if they are a 3.0 or below in their GPA, they will be advised through the VMASC, which is a wealth and plethora of resources to ensure that your student has the additional study time, the resources they need, and to know who they can go to on campus for those additional resources. Once you have that GPA 3.0 or above, they're going to be with a pre-nursing advisor who is in the Office of Student Success in the School of Nursing. And the only reason why it's in a different office is because of where some of those resources are located, not that one's better or worse. And so those advisors are only there to make sure that the student is doing what they need to do, taking the courses they need to take, and then we get them on the map to get through the program successfully. So at any point in time, if your student starts to struggle and feels like that they are not aligned with their goals, they can always go back to their advisor. So if you came to one of my tours, you hear me tell students, think of me as your biggest cheerleader and your advisor as your biggest advocate, right? So they're the people that you can go to at any given point in time. So this is a good point to kind of stop and check in. Does anybody have any questions so far? I don't see anything coming in for the chat, but any questions about any of the points we covered to this point? All right, well, while we're waiting, I'd love to hear where everybody's from so we can get some conversation going. So let us know what part of the state or the country, the region, where everybody's from in the chat. So a couple of ways and things to think about for getting your student involved. So one of the questions I always get from families who come in is, does the School of Nursing, is it allowed that students can get into the program, which is going to be rigorous, but also does it allow for a balance in their lives, right? So if I want to be in a Greek organization or get involved and have maybe a part-time or very part-time job off campus, if I really need to work, or maybe I want to be involved in the band or something else in the ROTC, can I do those things? You absolutely can, and we encourage it. This is your college experience, right? And you want your student to have that balance. We also think it makes for a better student because they can balance their time, they can balance their commitments, and they get to understand what that's all about. And so at the end of the day, while some of these other things, the GPA is obviously very important, but to understand commitment and how valuable that is when it comes to working with our patients, those are the other intangible skills that we are certainly looking for. Some of the tools that I wanted to recommend to you that your student may or may not even think about is on the School of Nursing's website, you'll find a couple of podcasts. The Clinical Pearls podcast is very clinical based. So it's going to be most of our faculty, some of our deans, and some guest speakers who come in. And some of them are going to be clinical topics that, you may find some that are very interesting to you and your student and some that are not. But I encourage you to check it out because I do think there will be some very interesting information. Maybe your student needs to write a paper and can find some topics there that would be very helpful. Hint, hint. Also, there's a secondary podcast that is led by our students for our students, and it's geared toward pre-nursing students. It is called The Anatomy of Nursing School. So this podcast was started just a couple of semesters ago. And so we had some pre-nursing students mixed with a couple of current nursing students who wanted to try to help your student understand what that transition was like as a pre-nursing to the first couple of semesters of nursing school. So I think when you log on to this podcast, you'll find some helpful hints and tips about what to be looking for and what that transition might be from the perspective of a student. So definitely look out for the Anatomy of Nursing School podcast. And then last but not least is the Engage app, which is on the UAB School of Nursing's website. And this is really a website that allows your student to connect to organizations on campus. So what this site is all about is, think about the Student Nurses Association or the Pre-Medical Association or just another general club on campus. This is where your students are going to connect with other students. So definitely make sure that your student is aware of what this podcast is, and that you can make sure to reach out there. So, all right, let's see here. Okay, so I hear it sounds like maybe the chat might be disabled for some. I apologize for that, guys. Okay, so the Q&A is another place where you can enter information if the chat is disabled. So, all right, it looks like I've got some alumni in the chat. Very good. Welcome back. That's great to see. So as I'm talking about the Student Nurses Association and other activities on campus, I mentioned the student nurse, or what we call the SNA. I mentioned this not because your student has to join this or we require it, but because it's a way to engage and get connected to other nursing students. And this is a group that your student can join as a pre-nursing student, even as a freshman. So while it's certainly not required, it's an opportunity, right? So just keep that in mind. There is a nominal cost to that. Each year is $40 to join. But what the students do is, it's anytime a volunteer opportunity comes up from the community, it goes to that organization, right? That's the first group they go to. They have a mentoring program where the current upper level nursing students mentor the younger nursing students. And they also do a lot of volunteering. So if you're looking for volunteer hours to put on your resume, or you need some other experiences to kind of beef up your resume a little bit, just to add stuff that you're trying to help be a little more competitive, these are great things to look for. Again, it doesn't have to be this particular organization, but just something to keep in mind. So, and you'll see there's some other activities that we participate. SNA is huge in helping. I'm a big part of homecoming. We won first, second, and third place in all the different categories last year. But we're very competitive. Nursing students tend to be my top A students. So we like to kind of be competitive, keep on track, and have a good focus of what we're trying to do. So you see our mannequins down here. We're dressed up for Halloween, and we even put our beds in and had them dressed up, and then named all the different themes of the beds in the labs there. We have our own kickball league, our own softball league. So not only are we top A, but we're very competitive internally, but we like to have fun. So you've got to be able to blow off steam and enjoy ourselves outside of the classroom as much as inside of the classroom. And so even if you're not competitive or not athletic whatsoever, that doesn't matter at all. It's just about having a good time. So these are a few pictures from our labs. So for those of you who could not make it for a tour, maybe you live outside of the state and couldn't make it for an in-person tour, this will hopefully give you a few visuals from the building itself. So our building was renovated just a few years ago now. And so we have a new 36,000 square feet of space to work with, and most of that is classrooms and labs. So the whole first floor is all for student space. When you walk in, you'll see a great entryway where students can hang out in the first floor. When you go to the right, it'll be your lab space. And when you go to the left, it'll be your classroom space. And so, but we have lab spaces for every modality that you'll be practicing before you roll in and go over to your clinical sites. So again, if this is something you want to maybe come in one day, even if you're from out of town and you need to work with me on a tour option, just let me know, because again, it's the most important thing sometimes that will help you make your decision. So when it comes to clinical sites, so this is the number one most important thing that allows us to have the class size that we have. When we accept students twice a year in the spring and the fall. We accept 150 students in each class. In order to have a class that size, we base that demand on the number of clinical spaces that we can offer. And without the generosity of our partnerships at the area hospitals, we would not be able to offer your students those spaces. So when you're seeing the hospitals here on this particular presentation slide, these are the ones that are just across the street within walking distance. And these are not all of them. These are just a few of the selections that I pulled up. But we have a few other locations that your students will be able to go to within a half-mile distance and carpool with one another. We are very fortunate to be able to go to places like Lakeshore Rehabilitation Center, which is home to our U.S. Paralympic athlete training centers. So your students might have a chance to work with U.S. Olympic athletes. This past week, we just got finished. I spent a full 24-hour shift working at the World Games. So we are just recovering from all of the activities at the World Games. So if you're local here in Birmingham, I know without a doubt you've heard of the World Games, which is really exciting. So we had athletes from 7 different countries stop by the School of Nursing tent in just a matter of 4 hours. But we treated athletes from all those various countries. I forgot how many countries we counted by the end of the 2 weeks. University Hospital, which is UAB Hospital, we are a level 1 trauma center and see roughly 1 million patients, actually now over 1 million patients a year. But UAB has their own fleet of helicopters, planes, ambulance, fire trucks, and fly as far as Africa to transport patients. And so when you think about the opportunity to see a variety of patients in one setting, UAB is the best of the best as far as settings where you will have the chance to see a variety of patient populations. So again, you're very fortunate to have that setting right across the street. They are also doing some very unique procedures. So just the past year and a half, they did, you may have seen on TV, where they transplanted a modified pig kidney into a patient, and that patient was able to begin to urinate within a matter of minutes. That's incredibly exciting in the world of medicine. They've already showed it on Grey's Anatomy, which is really cool. And then also they are doing an organ transplant with a uterus. And so it's going to allow women who were previously not able to have children to have up to 2 children. So they are currently transplanting every solid organ in the body at UAB. So again, incredible medicine that's happening. We are attached on the 2nd floor of UAB Medicine to Children's Hospital, which is the largest children's hospital in the state of Alabama. They see 97 to 98% of all the pediatric oncology patients in the state of Alabama. So to have the opportunity to see as many peds rotations as we do at UAB, we're very fortunate. You won't just have one rotation, you'll have multiple rotations for peds patients. And we are one at the School of Nursing, one of 16 schools of nursing in the entire nation that have a partnership with the VA system. So if you are a veteran or interested in serving our veterans one day, then the VA partnership is for you, because it's an opportunity to learn about the specific needs of our vets. And so we're going to set you up to have some rotations at the VA so that hopefully when you finish the program, you're able to get that job with the federal system or go on to complete your military service and be set up perfectly to know the needs of the vets. All right, so we've talked a little bit about some of these things already, but I mentioned the FYE class. There's also a new class that we are working on that students can have the option to take. It's not required. And this is a class that's a 1-hour credit. So a lot of our students may or may not choose to take it, but I want you to know that it's an option. And this class is, again, about learning that transition from being a pre-nursing student to a nursing student. So if your child has taken a lot of maybe dual enrollment or IB credits, AP credits in high school, and they're coming to us and they got a 1-hour credit they might need before they're ready to apply to nursing school, then they can talk to their advisor, and we may have a course that's technically a pre-nursing class that they could take as a pre-nursing student. And that is something that's brand new that we've not tried before. So we're going to see if that helps prepare students a little bit coming into the program. And then if that works out well, we may try to add on more in the future. So some of your students may have had a tough time getting volunteer shadowing hours. As far as admission to our program, it's not a requirement, but it's certainly something we want to encourage. And it's starting to become a little bit easier for them to get those hours, but I don't want your students to stress out over it. Just know that once they get to UAB, then they can start working toward that goal of trying to get some volunteer shadowing hours through the different hospitals, organizations, hospice, home health care. There's a lot of ways to get some shadowing and volunteering experience. Even customer service, leadership experience is important. So all of those things count. And then on the topic of scholarships, as far as scholarships go, we do offer scholarships in the School of Nursing. You will be reviewing your UAB scholarships. Hopefully you know that information by now. For the School of Nursing, you will not be eligible for nursing scholarships until you enter your nursing coursework. So when you enter your nursing coursework, that's after your prereqs are completed, and you're eligible for nursing scholarships in your upper level nursing courses. You can apply for nursing scholarships 2 to 3 times a year and use those throughout the nursing courses themselves. So I hope that makes sense. Just let me know if you have any questions and I can clarify that a little bit. All right. So you should all hopefully know the difference between any of those who have a Dean's Nursing Scholar designation. I hope you do, and congratulations to those who do. The Dean's Nursing Scholar designation was a true designation for anyone coming out of high school who had a 3.8 or higher GPA, applied to UAB by December 1st of their senior year, and was coming to UAB with a declared interest in nursing. All right. From there, they have to complete all their prereqs at UAB and maintain a 3.2 or higher GPA once they get here. Students who do that will have a path into the nursing program in one of our 2 semesters. So again, congratulations to those who have the Dean's Nursing Scholar designation. There's no money attached to it. It's a designation, but it does help take some ease off your shoulders while you're focusing on your grades. And it really rewards you for the work you did in high school. So that's great. Now, for those who maybe were on the cusp and don't quite have that 3.8 in high school, it does not mean that you are not great at where you're at and you're not going to do well in UAB. So when you get to UAB, you're going to focus on doing well in your prerequisite classes, which I'll show you in just a minute. And then from there, you're going to maintain your GPA. I always tell students, again, shoot for as high as possible, but that mid 3 is that minimum GPA we're going to shoot for. And then from there, you're going to take all your classes at UAB. And then once you do that, you're going to get consideration as a student who took all their classes at UAB. So that's going to help you be competitive compared to someone who didn't take all their classes at UAB. All right. Now, again, talking about advising, your advisor is going to be very upfront with you. So listen to them. If they feel like you're not as competitive as you should be, they'll be honest with you. If we need to look at more options, if they are worried you might not be competitive to get into UAB, they'll be honest with you. So we're not going to let you wait till the very last minute of the application process and then not talk about all your options. So, I keep mentioning the word prerequisites. All right. So I should have put this a little bit earlier in the presentation. When you look at this screen here, this is a list of all of those prerequisites or the courses that you'll need prior to starting nursing school. So there are typically 2 years of classes that you have to have before you come into the nursing program. But I might start the same time that you're starting this program, and you may have a lot of dual enrollment or IB credits, and I have none. So that can make a difference in when we're ready to apply for the nursing program. Okay. So again, those should be evaluated so that you'll know by now when you did your orientation when your student's ready to apply. Make sure that all documentation that you have about AP scores, dual enrollment, transfer credits, anything you have should be sent to UAB, because that will make the difference in how they're able to grant those credits, right? And that's vital to how they're able to review your transcripts. So I've talked about how many students we accept each semester. When it comes time for you to apply to nursing school, it is in your last semester of the prerequisite classes. And we accept students twice a year in the spring and the fall. So you will have 2 times a year that you can apply to the UAB nursing program. So if you don't get in one semester, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to apply again the next semester. So there's certainly going to be opportunities for you. And one quick shout to the screen, the picture you see on the screen here. This is actually from a mass casualty simulation that we do once a year with our students. So when you're in your 3rd or 4th semester, you will be involved in these simulations. So maybe we have a bus crash or a plane crash or a concert, and there's a mass casualty. You will be involved in these scenarios, and we learn how to triage patients on the scene, how to transport them to and from the scene. And so it's one of the, I think the students, their favorite times of the year when they get to do the mass casualty simulation. But I always love to include one of these pictures, because you'll have your live patients and we'll have mannequins as well in some of these scenarios. So all right, so I'm going to skip through this particular slide, but so we can get to the actual piece of the program that I want to spend a little bit of time on here. So in order to apply for the nursing courses, there's a couple of things your student will need to submit. Now, you don't have to remember all of this right now. Their advisor will be reviewing this with them when they are in their last semester of prerequisites. But when they're ready to apply for the nursing program, there's a couple of things they will submit. They'll have an application, essay, resume, and supporting documentation. Every single student will submit the same information. So keeping that in mind, their GPA is always going to be the most important. And then from there, those other pieces of the puzzle will come into play. The essay is always important, right? So we're looking at their writing skills. We give them a lead question to complete, but we're looking at their experiences overall. So I mentioned earlier volunteer shadowing experiences, but maybe your student didn't have time for that because they needed to work a job. And so, or maybe they were very involved on campus. Let's think about how we can take those experiences, their leadership skills, their multitasking skills, everything that the nurse needs on the job, and translate that into how they are prepared to come into a nursing program, right? It doesn't always have to be working alongside a nurse as a volunteer, right? There's other ways that we can take their experiences and translate that as being valuable. I've had students who have been bartenders, right? And that's a great experience. They are definitely multitaskers. They have great, interactive skills with their customers. And so as a nurse, you're certainly going to need that. So keeping all of those things in mind. And again, we'll talk about that a lot with your students and their advising meetings. Each semester is divided up into different concepts of caring for a patient. So it will work through the entire life cycle of birth through death. In the first semester, early on, we're developing those concepts. And that's why the first and second semester are so hard for students. It's that transition period, right? So you're probably going to have a lot of students who have always made straight A's, or have been A and B students who find that they are no longer making A's and B's in nursing school. And so they may make a C for the first time, and it's going to be devastating, but know that that's not uncommon in nursing school. So just kind of coming to terms with that transition, we will have things in place to try to prepare students as best as possible. So, but just being prepared, because again, we've got a lot of type A students, right? So we're trying to do everything we can to get them ready and know how to prepare for these exams, because the way that you're going to think logically through to prepare for a nursing exam is different than how you would study for a history exam. So, and I know my alumni on here would probably speak hallelujah to those examples. So All right, so I'm going to take a breather for just a second and I'm going to change our direction. I want to give you some information on a new program that we have. And I'm telling you this because I want you to know about the opportunities that are available for your student if we need and want to look at other options when they get to UAB and we're looking at putting our eggs in those other baskets. And one of those is the joint enrollment pathway with a couple of our local community colleges. So some of our students don't like to hear this information because they feel like they're not as much of a UAB student as they would be if they were working with a partner community college, right? But that's just not the case. This program, students are a UAB student, but they're also going to be physically located on one of the community college campuses for their clinical preparation in the nursing program. So let me explain. The joint enrollment pathway allows a student an option, excuse me, to get their associates in nursing and bachelor's in nursing at the exact same time. So when they do this, our community college partners are Jefferson State, Birmingham campus, and Wallace State, Hansville. And I expect some new partners to be announced hopefully in the next few months, but some more to come on that. But with this program, some of the benefits are cost, right? So anytime you look at a nursing program, it's expensive. This program allows you to be eligible for financial aid at the UAB level, but you're paying back to the community college the cost of those courses. All but 9 courses are the cost at the community college level. 9 of those are at the UAB level cost. So when you look at the total cost, it's much more affordable as far as totals go. If you are given that Dean Scholar designation, I would, unless cost is the number one driver and you're needing to make that overall financial decision, I would recommend, if you can commit to that UAB decision, if you leave UAB and take classes anywhere else, you're not going to maintain that Dean Scholar designation. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind as pros and cons here. Another thing to keep in mind is you're getting the 2 degrees. So you're getting an associate's and a bachelor's. So that's one really great thing. We're the first of our kind here in Alabama to do this kind of program. And so we've had 2 classes graduate. The current class has 100% NCLEX pass rate. They're smaller classes. If you are in Jeff State campus, your clinicals are going to be all the same locations as we have at UAB. If you're at Wallace State, you actually have a little bit more selection because they hit some of the North Alabama and Central Alabama hospitals. So if you maybe are wanting to stay closer to home, or maybe a student who doesn't physically want to be in Birmingham, it could be a good option. So again, keeping the options in mind, this is something to take into consideration. One last thing I'll point out here is that if you have a student who we are finishing their prereqs at UAB and their advisor is worried they're not going to be competitive with their GPA, maybe it's a 3.0, somewhere in that range, 3.2, but they're a good student, then this could be an option for them to still get into nursing school without having to sit out some semesters and still get them that pathway to get their bachelor's degree. So again, just keeping that in mind. The only big difference in the application process is, of course, they'll have to apply to the community college. They'll have to let us know they're interested in the joint program that admits twice a year. And they'll need an ACT score, which a lot of students don't have right now. And the ACT score is 20. So if anybody wants to talk to me about that at all, I can answer questions here, but I can also meet with you individually about it as well. So, all right, let's see here. As far as graduate pathways go, these are the things that UAB is known for, right? So we're known for all the specialties that we offer a student as they continue their education. And so a couple of new programs that we offer, I'm not going to go through all of these because you've probably looked into them before, your student has, but we offer an MSN pathway. I mentioned earlier the DNP, non-clinical research. And so when you see a subspecialty, think about it as a minor at the graduate level, right? That's what a subspecialty is in our book. The new programs that we have are midwife. So we're really excited to be able to bring midwife program back to Alabama. And we used to have that program 15, 20 years ago with Alabama state legislation. It went away. So we reintroduced that. And then another new program is a dual DNP clinical doctorate and a research doctorate. So those are together. And that is a hefty program, but if you have a student who their desire is to create new knowledge to cure certain diseases, but also know the clinical practice behind it and be able to put those ideas into practice, that's a great pathway for them. So I'm really excited to be able to get to know your students better and to see, what we have in store for them for the future. So and these are just little takeaways here. Don't forget as you're moving forward and you're researching the resources here on campus, the financial aid office, we all came in through this past year and they changed the scholarship process. So make sure you're getting to know the financial aid processes, procedures, reaching out to them if you have any questions. Your student should get to know their advisor. So make sure that if they haven't had orientation yet, they will meet their advisor in orientation. And that is the perfect introduction time for them to make sure they get their name, make sure you know their name. So you can ask them, hey, how's it going with so-and-so? And so think that's like their parent away from home, right? They're making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it's a really good way to just check in with your student to make sure that everything's going well. And even in nursing, grammar and writing skills are going to be vital. And I know a lot of students think nursing is an easy way to get out of those English courses, and grammar, writing skills are not necessarily what we're looking for from a student. But when you think about documenting in a patient's chart for the rest of their life, it's certainly something that we look for when we're looking at those essays and resumes. So if we ask for your student's name rather than their student number, we want to see that your student can follow instructions. And we will offer days where we will review their essay and resume for them and give them feedback, but they've got to take us up on it. So a lot of students are shy about doing that. I was one of those students, but making sure that they just know that it's better to have a stranger read it sometimes than somebody who knows you, because a stranger can see some gaps in your story that you're trying to tell. And if somebody who's in your family reads it, they can easily see what you're trying to say and may miss a little piece of your story that could make a difference between getting scholarship money or not. So I always recommend letting other people read your essays and resumes. We talked about scholarships. I won't harp on that too much. If your student starts to struggle with their GPA, don't let it be more than one test, right? One test can impact a GPA. So make sure they reach out to their advisor, to their teacher, their teaching assistant. UAB has things in place to help them not fail. So don't let that go past one test. Make sure just check in, see how things are going, and don't let them settle for it's going okay or we'll see, so just I know it's hard and we've all been there, but just know that there are so many resources here, and if they will just kind of be brave enough to kind of look into those resources, and they are all in the syllabus, they are in these modules that teachers put out there for them, they just have to take advantage of them. So all right, guys. And then one last thing is the one-stop office here at UAB. If you ever not sure where to go for something, or your student's not sure where to go, the one-stop office is the best place to find anything besides Google for UAB. So one-stop office, and that is in the Hill Center, the Student Center. When you first come in on the first floor, they will be able to answer any of your questions or find out anything that you need to know for general questions on campus. So all right, so those are my main things. This is back to my contact information. So let's see here. What kind of questions we have?
Hello. Hi, Annalie. I'm back. And
her power's back on.
yes, hello, everybody. I'm sorry. My name is Carmen Novell. I'm the Family Engagement Coordinator, and I was out because the power went out and then I didn't have access to Wi-Fi, but I'm glad to be here and see that everybody was able to join. And thank you, Annalie, for your presentation. And we do have time for questions, and we do have one question. I'll read it out and then you can answer it. And then families, by all means, please send your questions or put them in the Q&A section. This webinar will also be recorded and will be posted. You can go to our website, uab.edu/families, and go to communications. And there you can see our webinars that will be posted once they're captioned. And feel free to check out the other webinars. So without further ado, the question is, if our student is an undeclared nursing student during freshman year, is it harder to get into nursing school, or does it take longer to get into the nursing program?
No, not at all. So really what it comes down to is that when we talked about putting students on the path to make sure they can be the most successful. So it really truly is about making sure that the student, whatever their designation is, their nursing, pre-nursing, undeclared, whatever that is that they are going to have access to all the tools they need. And so for some students, it might be about how they tested into a math course, or maybe when they submitted their ACT scores, there were certain things that they uploaded into that they were able to opt in or opt out of certain courses. And so UAB has tried to put things in place to make sure that we give your student exactly what they are needing coming in and getting a good start into that first year in the freshman year. So just because a student may be undeclared or even undeclared in a completely other major does not mean that they are not going to be able to be successful coming into nursing. What I would recommend, though, again, going back to harping on the advising piece of it, is staying connecting with the advisor and making sure. I recommend meeting with the advisor minimum once a semester, because that way you are on track for the classes that you need to take. And if for any reason it comes up that a student, needs to retake a class, or you're never spending money or time taking a class you don't need to take. That's the easiest way to say it, right? If I were to go out there, I just start creating my own schedule because I think that's what I need to take. I've got a much higher chance that I'm not taking the right classes versus going to the expert to ensure that I am. And so again, it's all about making sure that we're doing everything we can. So
that is great advice. And we have another question. If a student is designated as a Dean Scholar and meets the GPA requirements, do they apply to a School of Nursing, or are they automatically admitted?
That's a fantastic question, Tara. So with the Dean Scholar designation, we will have a seat in one of the 2 semesters for the Dean Scholar applicants, but they will need to apply. And we have every student, no matter if they're Dean Scholar or a transfer student or a native UAB student who's taken all their classes but applying through the traditional process, because it helps us to get to know the students. And so that's our way of getting to know your student better, even though they're coming in as Dean Scholar, and we have other things that we try to do to get to know students. And it also helps us to help them to understand those processes and procedures that we put in place, those checks and balances too. And so about following processes, right? And so it's all about coming into the fold for the nursing program. So for Dean Scholar, as long as they hold up their end of the commitment of that 3.2 or higher GPA here at UAB, then in one of those 2 semesters, there will be a seat in the program for them.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And if you still have a question, please drop it into the Q&A section. Again, we will post this webinar on our website. And today we weren't able to live stream it to Facebook, but as soon as I have the recording, I think I'll post it on Facebook, because some of our families go into Facebook and check out the webinars, which also reminds me that the other webinars are already on Facebook. If you weren't able to join before, please go check them out on Facebook. Do you have any last minute tips? I think you've said a lot about meeting with the advisor and reading directions and instructions and paying close attention to that. Do you have any last minute tips for our students and our families who are coming to the nursing program or considering the nursing program?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just absorb everything you can about the process, but also enjoy it. You know, I kept saying earlier, a lot of our students, we've got those traditional like type A, they really like to get in, they want to do a good job because they want to care for people, right? And so we want our students to have that balance. We want them to come in and have a good college experience, but also do well in school at the same time. And a lot of our students really struggle with the anxiety that comes along with wanting to excel at the highest level. So for their parents, you know, when you come in, sometimes you see them and they're at the highest levels of anxiety because it's hard and school is hard and they're trying to be the best that they can because these are classes they've never encountered before at this level. And so being there to support them, but to know that even though they're as stressed out as you've probably seen them, that they are probably doing very well. And I always tell the students, we will let them know when it's time to stress out, right? So we will give them indicators of when they should be stressed because we can see it in the classroom when they are not paying attention or they did not follow our cues to get the material that we were trying to make sure they needed to be able to do well on the exams. And so, you know, no one's trying to be mysterious in their processes, following the syllabus that all of the instructors here at UAB will give your student. So at the beginning of every semester, every nursing student, once they are in the program, will sit down with their syllabus and put their entire calendar together for the rest of the semester. It's a really good habit for your student to start as a pre-nursing student. So that would be another tip that I would recommend, is just taking an hour or so sitting down and putting their calendar together. That way they can kind of see where they stand, blocking out study time, and that way they can hopefully have time to do other activities and things and not get to that level of anxiety that sometimes it can happen. So there's a term that we use here in the School of Nursing. It's be Gumby, right? Be flexible always. And so things will come up, things happen, and we have to adapt. And so we need our students to also be flexible in that same way. And so we will do everything we can for your student. And I hope this information tonight has been helpful.
I think it has been wonderful. Lots of information, very helpful. Support is key. And students are very lucky to have all their family members here today learning about the School of Nursing. Again, if you would like to submit questions now or later, Annalise email address is on the screen, and you can also send it to our email, families@uab.edu, and we will relay that message to her. So again, one last reminder, after this webinar is over, or you probably already got a survey about the webinar, and that's important for us to know how else we can be of assistance to you, what other questions you may have. So please take a few minutes. It doesn't take but 3 to 5 minutes to complete the webinar, and we look forward to hearing what you think and how else we can help you. And so thank you, Annalie, for your time tonight. We hope everybody was safe with the storms. I'm glad some of us have power again, and I hope everybody's safe and has a great evening. And again, thank you for attending the webinar tonight. And please look at the calendar, and we have more webinars coming up throughout the rest of July and half of August. So have a wonderful evening, everybody. And thank you, Annalie.
Thank you, guys.